This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Ali.
And I'm Sarah.
And we have got a very, because it's the 4th of July just gone, it is a very US-centric episode. And not because of the fact that it's one of the only leagues playing right now. But we are going to talk about all things NWSL with a little bit of WSL transfer news. Very quickly, a little bit of housekeeping. Our wonderful editor/producer/fact checker.
The reason this podcast still exists.
Exactly. Mike is having a well-earned holiday for the next couple of weeks.
We've let him out of his box. And as neither me nor Sarah have the skills to edit video, we're just about going to be able to manage audio. When I say we, I mean Sarah. We will be going audio only for the next 2 weeks, but we will be back gracing your screens for the episode that's out on the 29th of July. I have nothing else to add. I feel like that was beautifully said, Allie. Mike, we hope you have a fantastic vacation. All right, should we get into it, Allie? It was a wild weekend back in the NWSL. We've got a lot to chat about. And as you said, it's not a ton of WSL transfer news, but what has happened, it's big moves.
Yes, we've got a bit of transfer news. Also, there's the Maddie Cusack inquest, which is going on at the moment. That is quite rough at the moment, but we will break that down a little bit.
And maybe the highlight of the episode, we'll find out. Allie has a very special segment in place of Around the World that they're going to bring to us and bring to me today. I was like, Allie, did you put Around the World in the notes? And they were like, no, it's a surprise. So we're going to find out. So everybody, including me, is on the edge of their seats. So let's do it.
So let's start with the NWSL because it is back. This is the first big weekend since its hiatus because of the apparently men play football now. So it is back. So we're going to talk about a couple of games because there were some shock results that happened this week. But I'm going to throw it over to Miss Ash because apparently she has a question for me.
I do. I've been thinking about this because I was working this weekend and I feel like the question that kept coming up among people was the difference between the NWSL and the MLS and how they're handling this World Cup break. And this is a problem that we don't have in Europe because obviously the season runs fall, winter, spring, not in the summer. But in the NWSL, since it runs March through what used to be October, now kind of into November, maybe even into late November, it's a problem a lot of the time because you have Euros, you have the Women's World Cup. At least those are like women's soccer-centric events. But especially now that the Men's World Cup is in the US, I think this has become even more of an issue. So I'm curious if you feel like what you think about how the NWSL has decided to handle this, in that they took a month break for June, but they're restarting kind of like halfway through the World Cup. The MLS is off the entirety of the World Cup. They were just like, we're not going to get viewership during it. We're not going to play. And it's a long break. Like, they're taking a 2-month break in the middle of the season. The NWSL, I feel like, tried to split the difference, which I appreciate because a 2-month break in the middle of the season, you might as well just not even start the season. It's like, what are we doing? But obviously, I mean, one of the games I was on, it was at the same time as the Argentina game, the Argentina Cabo Verde game. Like, what ended up being the darlings in the game of the tournament that literally everybody in the world watched. And you can't compete with that. I don't care even if you're like the English Premier League, you're probably not going to compete with that. So I'm curious. I mean, obviously viewership doesn't matter at the end of the day, but in some senses it does, because leagues have to use viewership numbers to go get more money and more media deals and blah, blah, blah. And you can explain this away very easily, but it's still lower viewership. So how do you feel about how the NWSL has handled it. It's kind of like a lose-lose situation.
It is. It's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Personally, I might have taken more of the MLS approach. That if viewership, because it's hard enough to watch the NWSL games as it is.
Oh, you mean like, I'm going to watch this game, where is it even being played? And now we have to spend 15 minutes trying to figure out which streaming service it's on and going to that. Do I even have that streaming service? So on and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah. So why are you then competing with, like you said, what turned out to be... Because, I mean, Argentina was always going to be a massive game because Messi is Messi and he now plays in the MLS and, you know, it's a big thing. So I probably would have done that and just taken a bigger break because teams can still keep training. They can still keep themselves fit and warm. And we saw it where I think it was Portland, San Diego had a friendly to get themselves back into being game fit ready. So you could keep doing that. You could always do yourself a mini tournament. Like we've seen
I feel
before.
like that's the worst of both worlds, though.
Oh no, it's a terrible idea. But I'm just saying,
the players don't get time off, and nobody's gonna care about that tournament.
Yeah, there's things you could do, but personally, I probably would have extended the break a bit because, like you said, viewership is important. The money that comes from those figures is important. So yeah,
I don't know. It's so tough. I really get what they want to do, which is like, oh, you're loving watching soccer? Guess what? Here's a bunch of good soccer. And the games were fantastic this weekend. Like, they were really great. And I think the later we get into the Men's World Cup, like the later rounds we get, then obviously we're not going to have games every day. And people are going to be a little like itching and starved for soccer. And they're going to be like, oh, what's on? Oh, the NWSL is on. So it very well, like, we don't know the end result. Very well could pay off in the long run, for sure. But it's an interesting predicament.
It's definitely was good scrapping it during the group stages because of how many matches were going on.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't even watch all of the World Cup matches if you wanted to.
Correct. So, yeah.
All right. So that was my question, just because I feel like it's a massive predicament and it's something that happens a lot in this country because of the winters that we get. It's kind of impossible to play an outdoor sport unless it's American football because they'll play in whatever weather they have. It's kind of impossible to play an outdoor sport in line with the European schedule. That is something that the NWSL has considered, so on and so forth. So it all kind of ties together.
Well, Happenings World Cup has taught me anything. You can put a dome on a on a field and it suddenly becomes an all-weather pitch, as we learn.
That's true.
So let's talk about the games that happened this weekend because there were some surprising results. There were some big results specifically for the implication of the top of the table and who's currently running away with the Shield race. It's still quite close, but there were some big results that have impacted that. So let's go into this table talk where we were looking at the table before this from the break and now this after this weekend's results.
It's been massive. I feel like it's tough. I love when tables align when all teams have played the same number of games, and that has certainly not happened here. So there's like, it's a little more complicated because teams have games in hand, etc. But nevertheless, I think this is a really fun top of the table race that's unfolding. The past 2 years, we've kind of had teams running away with it, right? Orlando ran away with it 2 years ago. Kansas City ran away with it, and it felt like a battle for second place. This is a full-on dogfight, and I think it will be to the end, and it's really fun. Okay, so going into this weekend, San Diego was in first place, but they'd played 13 games. They had 25 points. Utah just 1 point Utah and Portland just 1 point below them, but Utah had a game in hand. Washington, Gotham, and Kansas City all had just 4 points below San Diego, and all of them either had 1 or 2 games in hand. So like San Diego was in first, but there were a lot of games in hand, etc., etc. We're going to talk about the San Diego Gotham matchup in a moment because that obviously was the top 5 teams both going head to head against each other, massive table implications. I feel like these results were huge because San Diego, Utah, Portland, Washington, Gotham, that's how the top 5 fell coming into this weekend. And now how we sit, Utah's dropped because they lost. We'll talk about that. Gotham have dropped, obviously, because they've lost. And now the top three are San Diego, Portland, Washington. Washington is sitting pretty, though, because they have 2 games in hand and just 4 points behind San Diego. Gotham have fallen to 7th place with their loss. They lost to San Diego Wave. Utah lost to Chicago. And, like, if you're going to fall from 5th to 7th from one game, this is how tight the top of the table is. And I'm absolutely loving it.
It's definitely been surprising because, like you said, we normally have one team that runs away with it. Normally you can sort of gauge. Sometimes you get a surprise team like Orlando definitely was a surprise in the year that they did the double. I would say apart from Washington, all of the teams in the top 4 are surprising to me.
In the current top 4. So San Diego, Portland, Washington, Utah. You're surprised by San Diego, Portland, and Utah?
Yes, based on how they were last season.
I agree. And as somebody who has kind of been, listen, I've been a San Diego hater for this, like, kind of since Jonas has taken over. I'm sorry, it's my Arsenal bias. It just happened. I loved San Diego before. I was riding hard for them. And I've kind of been a hater since Jonas took over. They're the real deal. And this might be, so I will say I was surprised, but I'm no longer in the least surprised about San Diego Wave. And they had a statement win this, I think it was Saturday that they played. Should we talk about it? I feel like that's a great transition.
We should talk about it because I would like to know what you mean by statement win because
Well, I mean, like, okay, so if you looked at the games that were happening this past weekend, this was the one you're going to circle. Like, we talked about this, like, when we were like, which games are we excited for? And there were a lot of games we were like, what? That's exciting. But then you look at this and for what the table looked like going into last weekend, this was always going to have massive table implications. Like, a win for Gotham, that would have put them even on just 1 point behind San Diego with 2 games in hand. That's a massive implication for a top of the table. And San Diego, I mean, a loss there and they would have fallen down, they would have fallen behind because Portland would have won. Portland would have catapulted themselves into first. It just had massive implications for the top of the table. And that's why I feel like it was a statement win, because it felt like here's 2 teams that are vying for that number 1 spot right now. And honestly, San Diego made Gotham look like they shouldn't even be in the top of the table race.
Yeah, but we've been saying that for years, like for a while.
No, we haven't.
Yes, we have. We've been saying that for a while. Like,
we've been praising their defense.
Yeah, but Gotham have been weird this season. We mentioned it last week. Gotham have been absolutely shocking, and also they've won the title a couple of times by sheer chutzpah and squeezing into the bottom of the playoffs. So it's not shocking to me that you're like, oh, they don't look like they deserve to be in there. No, they don't, because they don't, and they have a wind in the later half of the season, but it's not a shock.
It is shocking when you look at because like
they're Chelsea's retirement home, and I say this as a Gotham fan. They have become Chelsea's retirement home.
Brutal, Allie. Absolutely brutal.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, like, I get what you're saying, and it's not wrong. And you look at who they've added since last year, and if they were able to go on a run at the end of the season, and then you add talent, you should be at the top. You should be in the top of the table battle, which is what they have been until they kind of just got trounced by San Diego, which we're going to talk about.
But is the talent turning up?
San Diego scored 2 goals on Gotham, which is a rarity for this Gotham FC side, who had allowed, previous to Saturday, had allowed just 5 goals in 11 games. They're averaging 1 goal allowed per 2 games before last night. So, and now they're getting scored on twice in 1 game, like before Saturday. That's, you have to sit here and say this defense has shown up, because they have. They've shown up big time across the board. Whatever backline it is, and Katrin Berger has shown up. You just have to look at it and say the stats indicate that. Yes, we can also say, look at who they've played. They actually haven't played really anybody in the top 5, and this is going to be the big test, and maybe they're not a top 5 team. Maybe they are somewhere between 5 and 10, and they're going to battle for the playoffs again. Maybe that's who they are. But I still come back to, look at this roster. Look at this roster, and you compare it to a Utah, and realistically, and that's not to disrespect Utah in any way, but it's just to say, look at how much talent is on this Gotham team, and I think maybe Sam Kerr could be the missing piece. If there's something that's going to fix this season for Gotham, not that it needs to be fixed, that feels obviously massive, but if there's something that is a missing piece, it's that they can't score.
Let's talk about the winners. Let's talk about the victors. Let's talk about San Diego.
I'm not going to lie, like the first 15, give or take, maybe even 20 minutes, this was, I think, more Gotham FC. I think when you think about how Gotham had just played in the Challenge Cup, they have 90 minutes under their belt. San Diego, obviously they've been practicing, but you're going to be a little rusty if you haven't played in like 4 weeks as a team, and because there's nothing that can simulate a game. And at the end of the day, that's all that it was. For the first 20 minutes, it looked like this is going to be an even game. It's going to be back and forth. Gotham are kind of being the better side right now, but maybe the momentum will start to swing. The momentum started to swing. San Diego kind of had their bout of it. And I feel like the first half ended and it felt like Gotham took the first part of it. San Diego took the first part of it. This is going to be a dogfight to the end. It's going to be back and forth. But credit where credit is due. Obviously, San Diego got a massive goal at the end of the first half in like the 45th minute from Melanie Barcenas, which was a gorgeous goal. A beaut of a goal. Going into halftime, up 1-0, we have to, of course, account for that is some momentum that you take into the second half. But Gotham looked like they were stagnant. They didn't have creative ideas. The only person, I would say the only 2 people that I felt like were really trying, I'll give it 3. I don't know. I'm having a hard time. Jaden Shaw had a great first half. I think she disappeared in the second half. The only 2 people that were creating opportunities in the second half were Rose Lavelle and Jordan Dudley, who's been a revelation for Gotham. But San Diego Wave were able to control this game and control the midfield and find creative solutions and find their way through Gotham's back line and dare I say, exploit Gotham's line in the few weak spots that it has. Like, Jess Carter has a great game. She's a fantastic footballer. We have always said that the weakness of her game is her speed. San Diego just went and started to exploit that and started finding balls in behind. And guess what that did? That opened up the middle of the field. And for a team like San Diego to dominate the midfield like they were able to do, it was pretty incredible. And then, San Diego's for real, man. San Diego's for real. And we have to also look at their back line. Like, obviously, this is the Gotham team that haven't scored a lot, but to shut down players like Jordan Dudley, Jaden Shaw, Rose Lavelle, Esther Gonzalez, like, they did a fantastic job of it. I can't really find a weak spot in this San Diego Wave team. I think the weak spot has been their goalkeeper, and they were trying a new goalkeeper, and it worked out pretty well. Was she tested a lot? No. Did she come up big in the couple of moments? Yes. Yeah. So maybe that's the weak spot. We don't know. When she was tested, she came up well, but like, the San Diego Wave team's looking pretty airtight right now, Allie.
Yeah, no, it is, that has been their problem for a while, is the fact that they would bring in these players and then you're like, what are you going to do with them? Because they never seemed to know what they were going to do with them. They just had a collection of players. And Stoney did build quite a good foundation, which is what she does. It's what she's very good at. And then she was let go and it sort of cracked. And I don't want to give him credit either, but Jonas does seem to be doing something.
The front office also is doing something. Jonas has done a good job. I think it's going to be okay. Let's dive into San Diego. It's going to be interesting to see how he manages to talk about Jonas and how he has done a good job. This is going to be his biggest test, and we'll see how he manages it. And here's why. We mentioned kind of the goalkeeper issues, and Luisa Agudelo got her first NWSL minutes and first start on Saturday, and she came up well. It's still a question mark, though. The biggest question mark, however, we know this midfield is strong. We know how much they can do from the midfield. So, look, Kimi Ascanio, Kenza Dolly, Gia Corley, so underrated. Obviously, their rookie Leah Godfrey, like a massive midfield. But you lose somebody as prolific of a goal scorer as Dudinia.
Yes.
Who was their biggest production, 5 goals, 4 assists in the first 13 games of the season. Like, that's massive. And you slot somebody in, Ljubomila, who I think scored 10 goals last season with Chicago. I believe it was 10 goals, 1 assist. And you expect that type of production still out of Ljubomila. And Ljubomila seems off. And so if I'm going to pinpoint one thing where it's like, how is Jonas going to manage this and get the same amount of production out of the San Diego Wave team as he could get when he had Dudinia? How is he going to do that?
That is the question.
Do we need to talk about Ljubomila?
Yeah, it was a rough one. It was a rough one for her.
Listen, it's tough to be a forward. It's tough for all of that weight to be on your shoulders. There were some clear-cut opportunities that I'm sure 10 out of 10 times of practice she scores. You can give forwards leeway because it is kind of that thing where, like, once you hit one, you're just going to start, like, it might just be you need one and then they're all going to come. And this is somebody that they paid $800,000 in transfer fees for, which was third highest at the time. Like, you put your money in, you want the output. I think she's going to get the leeway for it, but if she doesn't start producing, Trinity Byers, who came in as a substitute for her, who scored the second goal, I think might start to get minutes.
Yeah, especially when she missed an absolute open sitter, like, because that was harsh, man. Like, you saw it and you were like, it's an open goal. Berger's come rushing forward, which she is prone to do. It's for the taking, and she hits the post. It was a bit like, that should have been an easy tap in for you.
I agree. But I feel like if that's the only thing we're pointing to, and there's so much production coming out of so many other players, like, they're okay right now. They're airtight. I feel so bad for Katarina Macario, who is, you know, one of those players just that had the potential to be the best player in the world and has just had a professional career riddled with injury and is sidelined still. But can you imagine the San Diego Wave team with a healthy Katarina Macario? Like, deadly is a good word for it. All right, quickly on Gotham, Allie. You want to start or should I?
What is there to say about Gotham? I think my biggest pet peeve with Gotham this time around was the lack of communication. There was no communication with anybody, and we talked about that open goal. They were lucky they weren't punished, but you saw it where, like, the back line wasn't talking to Berger. She had to make a rash decision. They were lucky they weren't punished for it. There was a save early on in the game where you can literally see Sonnet yelling at Berger, being like, "Help us!" And Berger did come up with a big save that time. There was no communication at all. And I'm hoping it's just that it's been 4 weeks and they're rusty and that it will come together, but because we have been so big on their defense. But yeah,
I'm going to say something that it's going to sound like I'm putting it all on one player, but I promise I'm not trying to. But just in comparison, like I just mentioned San Diego Waves center midfield, right? Gia Corley is a revelation. She plays that number 8. Obviously Kenza Dali plays the number 10. And you look at, for example, I guess Kimi Ascanio kind of also played the 8, but it was kind of like dual. No, Kimi Ascanio was more of like a 6. It doesn't matter. Anyways, Gia Corley and Kimi Ascanio were creative. They were creative. That's the word for it. And and they didn't just put the emphasis on Kenza Dali because it's so easy if you look at a midfield of 3. Okay, we shut down one player. If those other 2 players aren't creative in the central midfield, like, great, job's done, easy enough. And that's, dare I say, kind of how I see the Gotham central midfield. Like, Roosevelt's sitting at the 10, and I need a little more creativity out of Jalen Howell and Savannah McCaskill. And Jalen Howell is more of the 6, and I think that she's played a good defensive 6 role. So if we're going to leave that where it is, like, I'd like a little more from her, but she's done well defensively, and so great. Savannah McCaskill playing the 8, I'm sorry, but there needs to be more creativity. If you compare her game and how she was able to play against San Diego to the equivalent position on San Diego, Gia Corley was creating so many opportunities for San Diego Wave. And that's what Gotham need from Savannah McCaskill, because it's far too easy for a team to just be like, if we shut down Rose Lavelle, we're good to go. And that's why I was saying Jaden Shaw was fantastic for Gotham in that first half, because she was creating a lot. She was getting into that space, into that like kind of number 10 space instead of Rose Lavelle, and turning and dishing and playing so well. And then she just kind of disappeared. Maybe San Diego figured out how to shut her down, but that's the moment where it's like, okay, well, if the other team figures out how to shut this one person down who's been distributing, somebody else needs to step up. And in that moment, it needed to be McCaskill. It needed to be Howell. It needed to be one of those two players. And it wasn't.
Yeah. It's the Kara Walsh of it all, in the fact that...
Yes, and that's why Georgia Stanway was so important.
Yes, but it is. It's the Kara Walsh of it all, in the fact that teams worked out we played all of our midfield through her. And then we figured it out with Stanway, and this is what it was. It was they figured out that Lavelle is the huge threat, so they stop it down, and Gotham haven't got a backup plan.
So we'll see. I mean, it's a kind of listen, this is going to be everything for Gotham, because as we mentioned, now they're on the road this coming weekend. Friday they're at Utah. And that might not sound scary, but it should, because Utah sit in 4th place right now. They're coming off a big loss that we're about to talk about. Yes. But, I mean, this is going to be a tough road for Gotham. They're at Utah. They get a little bit of a break because they'll go to Seattle. No offense to Seattle. But then they'll also play Washington, and they'll also play Portland. And those are their next games. So, I mean, we'll see if they're the real deal. Good news for them. Sam Kerr is eligible to play as of July 14th when the transfer window opens. Gotham have a massive game that they're playing in Queens. So it's the first game they're playing in New York City. They've sold over, I think they're playing at Citi Field where the Mets play, so it's a baseball stadium. They've sold already over 30,000 tickets. It's going to be massive. It's probably going to be Sam Kerr's debut. I think that's going to be a huge jolt for Gotham, and we have to give them credit because they've played a lot of tournaments. They played in the CONCACAF W Cup, whatever the hell that is. They didn't do so hot, but they still played in it. They played in the Challenge Cup. I think it's mentally exhausting. You're not here on the excuses. You're like, just fucking play.
Yes. I'm sorry. You know what? Boo hoo. I'm currently working on a 2,000 person event that's driving me mental, but you know what I do? I show up every day.
Allie's like, do your job.
Yes, you get paid a lot more money than I do. Behave.
That's really funny. All right, well, let's talk about it. Should we briefly discuss Chicago, Utah? Because Utah, also a top 5 team coming into this weekend, they suffered a defeat 3-2 against Chicago in Chicago. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, and it was one of those things that if it had been the game last season, I would have been like, that's probably about right. But then Utah have definitely been on the up, and Chicago have not, shall we say, in the nicest of terms. So yeah, it was a bit of a spicy shock, to be honest, but good for Chicago.
Technically, Chicago won 2 out of their last 3.
Good for Chicago.
I'm surprised. My biggest fear as a Utah truther. No, sorry, that's close to home. Sorry, no. A believer in Utah. Because I feel like going into the break, everybody was like, it was like week 1 of the NWSL, and people were like, well, Utah's not for real. Week 2, people were like, Utah's not for real. Week 3, Utah's not for real. Okay, well, going into the break, it was like week 11, and people were still saying Utah aren't for real. And it's like, well, we've been through a third of the season. I feel like Utah are for real. And some people still don't believe it. And what hurt my heart about this score is that it gave them, those people now are like, see? Yeah. So that's what I don't like about this, but I am happy for Chicago. I mean, those fans have been through too much.
Yeah, it is painful. It is painful being a Chicago fan right now. So God bless them.
What do you feel like happened here? There was, Sam Staub scored Chicago's second goal in the 59th minute, and it was a beauty of a free kick from outside the 18. Utah only scored 1 goal in the run of play here. Cece Kaiser scored their second goal on a penalty kick at the beginning of the second half. What was it? Something that went wrong for Utah? Do you feel like it was just rust shaking off? How are you feeling?
I do. I think and we talked about the NWSL couldn't do right for doing wrong. I do think it is the the 4-week break. There is definitely going to be a little bit of like disconnect and disjointedness. I don't want to take away from Chicago. I thought Chicago actually played a blinder. I think they actually got things right. Their defense, which we've talked about being appalling this season, actually were pretty decent. Like you said, there was only one goal in the run of play, and the other was a penalty. That I thought they communicated well, goalkeeper and back line. The midfield was actually quite beautiful in the passes they were stringing together. So I think it was definitely more of a what did Chicago do right rather than what did Utah do wrong.
I love that. I love to hear that. We'll leave it there. I feel like the other thing we were going to talk about is the Washington Spirit Houston Dash game, which was like the first game to re-kick off the NWSL, and it was a boring first half. Let's be honest. It was a screamer of a second half. Absolutely wild second half. Scoreless going into half, and then right off the bat, Rodman scored in the 50th minute, and then it looked like it looked like it was just going to be okay. Well, Washington aren't going to score again, but they're going to control the game throughout the whole time. Like it's over. 80th minute, it's still looking the same. 85th minute, it's still looking the same. And then suddenly on the counterattack, Kate Fossey scores for Houston Dash. 89th minute, it's equal. We're like, oh my God, this game is going to end in a draw. Houston are going to get out with a point. That is absolutely wild because, listen, if we're being honest, Houston were not worthy of a point in that game. And that's not what ended up happening. Trinity Rodman with a brace. I don't know how she scored that goal. But it was a really fun moment to kick off the NWSL. I don't really have anything to say about the game, but I feel like people are maybe, if who didn't watch the game, could look at this scoreline and be like, ooh, maybe Washington aren't for real. They only beat Houston 2-1. They were dominating the whole time. Let's just call a spade, right?
Yeah, no, the reason they didn't do any more was 2 words, Jane Campbell.
That's true. She had a game.
She had a great game. For the Dash's goalkeeper had a phenomenal game, and the saves that she pulled out to keep
insane,
including
a penalty kick save,
including a pen, which you were like, and that was I think in the first half, and it was like, okay, this is it. This is what's going to open up the Washington scoring. Nope. Campbell made herself big and things. So yeah, so the reason, if you're looking at this game and just looking at the scoreline, the reason Washington didn't beat Houston more is Jane Campbell. Whatever you can say about the Dash, she had a phenomenal game.
I can't remember. I don't know why I can't remember, but I can't remember who took the penalty kick for Washington Spirit. However, what I'll say is this. At a certain point, you have to get game experience taking penalty kicks. So I'm fine, correct. I suppose, at some, like, in theory, I am fine with you selecting somebody who has not taken a penalty kick yet in the NWSL to take this pen. And that's what they did. I can't remember who it was, but I remember being like, she's never taken a penalty kick. So this is an interesting selection. It didn't work out. and we can't really blame her. Jane Campbell is a great shot stopper, and she's also great at penalty kicks, which is a specific skill. However, if Washington had not gotten that goal in the 94th minute from Trinity Rodman, I think we would be sitting here saying it is a draw. Houston got one from Washington, and it is because it was a mistake in not selecting somebody experienced. For example, you have Lacey Santos standing on that field to take a penalty kick.
Yeah, it's always weird for me because, like, whenever I've played in the heady heights of the leagues I have, I'm a defender. I am not on a list to try and score a penalty. So it always baffles me how, like, the choices are made. But like you said, you've got doing it on the training field is very different from doing it in a game. You got to do it.
Yeah, I think it was Rosamund Kwasi.
Yeah, which God bless her for standing up and doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And in the run of play, like, Kwasi was creating so much. Maybe it really was one of those things where it was like, hey, you deserve this. You've earned this. Like, go on and take it. But hey, you gotta get your first one out of the way, I suppose. And good on Jane Campbell. massive credit to her. I think on that last goal that Trinity Rodman scored, because it wasn't a hard hit ball and it was a shot that Jane Campbell could have stopped, I think she was shielded by defenders. I think she literally didn't see the ball. And I think she'll be upset about it, but there's nothing you can do if that happens.
The thing I want to add on is to talk about it's the Emma Sears of it all. Are you up to date on this craziness?
I saw somewhere I read that she has said she wants out of racing. Is that what you mean?
Yes, so she's come out and basically it's been said that she's just signed a new contract with them. But she turned around and it seems that she's not happy with the direction the club's going. She's not happy with her position at Racing, and she wants out. And Racing have basically apparently said, no, you have a contract. So suck it up. You're playing in Louisville until the foreseeable.
Oof. Let me look. Do you know exactly when she re-signed?
October of 2025. So it was the beginning of this season, the end of last season.
End of last season. Okay, the end of last season and this season for Racing look very different. So I don't feel like this is like I signed a contract and then 3 weeks later I feel like I want out of it. No, she signed a contract probably under the impression that things were going to get better. And they've gotten worse. And it's very clear, like, the end of last year was the moment for this club to invest and invest hard. Because they have a coach that everybody loves, that everybody wants to play for. So go for it. Like, you had a good end of the season. You have a great coach. Inject your cash in and build. And they didn't. And it's a horrid season for them right now. And I don't blame her for wanting out of that, because at this point, they're looking kind of like a Chicago, where it's like, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. So of course she wants out. I want out for her. I think it's a real disgrace that the ownership group has clearly just not taken the care that they need to take. And it feels like Racing have always just been under the radar, and they've never been able to compete with the teams that they came into the league with, basically, with San Diego, with Angel City. And they're here for a reason. There's a huge soccer community in Louisville. Massive. But if you're not going to put the money behind it, why are you even here? So I don't blame her. I hate that Racing are kind of holding her hostage, and I hope she can find a trade. How do you feel?
I just think it shows the difference of systems, because, once a player's unhappy, like over here, sometimes the club will be like, well, you have a contract, you must play, but 9 times out of 10 they'll go, all right, transfer window, we'll move you on, because they know that if a player's not happy, they're not going to give you their best. They're not going to give you what you want, and it's just not beneficial to either or. But it was just intriguing to me that it seems that the club have gone, no, you signed a contract, you're going to, at least not this transfer window, maybe the end of season 1, but you're staying put, which is brutal.
It's brutal. I mean, at the end of the day, it's fair. You signed a contract, you're going to honor the contract, but it's also not fair because you're holding a player hostage. And I think it's detrimental to her growth as a player as well to stay there, which is kind of huge to say, because it's like, you know what, you could, I feel for her. It sounds like they're just going to keep her through the end of the season, which is brutal, but hopefully they do something different. Yeah, I mean, this is the difference. This is how sports here go, and that sucks. Games that you're looking forward to for this coming weekend?
So this coming weekend we have got is it the SoCal Derby?
I don't know what they want to call it. SoCal,
I don't know what they're calling it.
I don't know. Classic? SoCal Classic? I don't know. But
it's San Diego Angel City. That's always a fun one because of the local rivalry that is. They still don't know what they're calling it, but it's always a fun one.
They call it something. We don't know what it is, though.
Yeah. So that one for me is always a fun one. Boston Chicago could be a good one. That's a bottom of the table clash that.
I mean, Boston Bay was really fun. They ended in a 2-2 draw, and that was a bottom of the table crash. So this should be a good one too. Orlando's hosting Kansas City. And I just think that they're kind of equal.
It's such a grudge match. It's such a grudge match between them two. I feel like it's one of those that a natural rivalry has appeared for no reason, but it's here and I'm for it. Yeah.
Totally. The Cascadia rivalry is going down. Portland should slaughter Seattle, but in the Cascadia rivalry, like, anything can happen. That'll be a fun one on Sunday. Yeah. And then, I mean, we just talked about Utah. We just talked about Gotham. I'm interested. I'm curious. Utah hosting Gotham. Curious what's going to happen. All right. That does it for NWSL for this week. I'm excited. Let's get into Around the World, Allie, or whatever you're going to call this little treat. Do I sing? Or should you want to just get into it? You just get into it.
I mean, you can sing if you want, but it's not Around the World.
You go for it.
Okay, so we're going to play a little game because unless I want to do some really bizarre leagues, there's not much football happening. So as we're throwing the rule book out for this little summer series that we're doing, I've decided that I'm going to do little games in what would be, because Around the World is my baby. So we're going to do a couple of games.
I'm excited and I'm scared.
Okay, so I'm easing you in this one. I'm easing you in on these ones. So we've got 4 questions. The answers are simply true or false. Okay, so yes, you can. So the first one is only 4 nations have won the Women's World Cup. Is that true or false?
Can I think out loud?
Sure.
Okay, so obviously the US have won. Japan have won. Right now the World Cup and the Euros are blending in my mind. So I'm like, but I think Germany's won. I know they've won a ton of Euros. Have Norway won a World Cup or just Euros? Obviously Spain have won more. Okay, so 4 is the question is true or false? Exactly 4?
Yes.
False.
Yes. Incorrect.
Have Norway not won? It's exactly 4?
No, you got it the wrong way around. Germany have never won a World Cup. But Norway have won the World Cup.
Dang it. I was like, this. I know in my brain that Norway have a Euros, and I know Germany have a ton of European championships.
They do.
But I couldn't remember which one of them had won. Dang.
No, so it's 4. Okay. True or false? More people watched the Euros 22 final than the 99ers final.
Worldwide? Like viewership worldwide?
No. Capacity.
Oh, capacity in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The Euros final in 2022?
Yep.
Okay, so basically this is a sold-out Wembley. Is it bigger than a sold-out Rose Bowl Arena?
Yep.
And now this is just like, how well do I know capacities of stadiums? Okay. I think 2022. I think Wembley's bigger than the Rose Bowl. Gosh, I'm wrong again?
Yep. There is 90,000 in the Rose Bowl Arena, and it is 87,000 at Wembley.
Oh, close call. Wow.
I didn't say that they weren't mean questions. I just said they were questions.
No, these are great questions.
Okay, here we go. This is a good one. England currently holds the record for the biggest win in a Euros match. True or false?
I think that's true.
Yay! Ding, ding, ding.
That was in 2020.
In 2022, we beat Norway 8-0.
Yes. I couldn't remember what it was, but I was like, I remember hearing this fact, and I think it was during the Euros. So I went for it.
It's in the Euros. Yes, that's why I specified in the Euros. Okay.
That's right. And then we proceeded to absolutely destroy Norway in our podcast.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And we've not stopped. Okay. And then the final one for this section is Ellie Carpenter is the youngest player to ever play in a World Cup. Obviously not right now, but she was when she made her debut.
In a Women's World Cup, yeah.
In a Women's World Cup.
That's really tough. I mean, we can keep it in the Matildas here. Like, they do have a history of a lot of players who debuted really young. For example, Sam Kerr, Caitlin Ford, that whole crop of players. They debuted really young for the senior national team because there really wasn't one. And they were basically the start of it. They were like the 99ers of the Matildas. So I feel like Sam Kerr was like 15 when she debuted for the national team. Then it just becomes a matter of days who was younger. Obviously, the 99ers would have been really young, but I think they would have been older. Okay, I'm gonna go with I think that Ellie Carpenter is the youngest. Dang, who is?
You're not going to get it at all in any way, shape, or form. It is Casey Fair of South Korea, debuted at 16 in the 2023 World Cup. The reason Ellie Carpenter is mentioned is because she holds the record for the youngest Olympian in a women's football match. She's the youngest Olympian.
How old was she in
16.
which Olympics? She was
16. She was 16. But she is the youngest.
In 2016. So she didn't participate then in the 2015 World Cup with Australia.
Yes.
Dang. I was banking on maybe she did. Dang it. These were fun. I'm excited. Maybe we don't even need Around the World, or maybe we'll just keep this and Around the World.
I was going to say, we're going to do some trivia stuff. We've got another cool game coming up that we are going to try and figure out the logistics of. So we're just going to do some silly stuff because it is our summer series. Tag us in socials what you guys got, like what your scores were, and if you like it. And, I love trivia. So, we'll keep going with this fun stuff.
Are all batteries the same? That's like asking if all soccer players are the same. Take Messi, the most decorated player ever. Is there any other player who has achieved that? No, just him. Now take Duracell. Is there any other battery with power boost ingredients inside? No, just Duracell. Remember, goats only trust goats because they're built different. And Messi only trusts Duracell.
Hey, it's Bill from the Bill Simmons podcast. FIFA World Cup 26 fans, listen up. As the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26, Michelob Ultra is giving away $1 million worth of FIFA World Cup 26 tickets and prizes. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra FIFA World Cup 26 superior access, no purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents 21 plus, begins on December 1st, 2025, ends on July 31st, 2026, multiple entry periods. Visit www.MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26 for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
This summer, soccer is here, and so are the watch parties. And Uber Eats has your game day essentials covered. Everything you need to keep your crowd happy, delivered straight to your door. Get wings, pizza, chips, dips, fresh ingredients, and more. Keep the soccer going and all your game day essentials flowing. Order in so you can lock in for the games. Only on Uber Eats for a limited time.
I love a theme.
And finally, let's talk WSL, because as it goes, the transfer window's open and there's a lot of movement. And I think two very notable movements have occurred in the past week since we last dropped an episode. Both of them have links to Arsenal. Which one do you want to start with?
I actually want to start off by asking you a very quick question. Surprise question. You guys want a surprise from me? I love a quiz. I love thing, but this is not a quiz. So we're going to talk about two transfers specifically that happened in the WSL. One I feel was the worst kept secret in the world. One you could have maybe predicted, but we didn't really get that much of an inkling for. As a fan of women's football, do you prefer when a transfer comes out of the blue and you have no idea? Like, for example, we knew Sam Kerr was leaving Chelsea. Gotham was a surprise to many people because there was no hints until she signed on the dotted line. Whereas the one we're about to talk for Arsenal has been pretty much known since March of this year. So do you prefer when it's just the sort of like absolutely out of nowhere, or do you don't mind when it's been hinted and then it's finally revealed?
I don't mind either way. I like both. I feel like both are exciting and both are good for the game. Because we talked about Sam Kerr, for example. That was such a fun conversation topic, and it was in the news all the time, and it's a great way I think it's great for growing the game when something like that's so exciting. People know it's coming, but you don't really know. I think that's fun. And then I think when big news drops out of nowhere, like the Monaco news recently, like that's all anybody can talk about. So I don't mind either way. Do you have a preference?
I prefer it when transfers are just out of the blue. It bores me when like it's known for so long, and then by the time I feel little excitement, because by the time it gets announced, you're like, well, duh, like I've known this for so long. Whereas like when teams just drop a thing that they've been talking to a player, you're like, that's cool. Whereas it takes the excitement out of it for me.
I get that. So you don't really care that Georgia Stanway is officially going to play for Arsenal.
No, I don't particularly. And it did make me laugh because obviously Arsenal fans are over the moon and it's great for them and they're so excited. But then you had the detractors being like, I don't know if you saw the announcement video, but she's tattooed one of the chants on her arm and that's how it was announced. And everybody was like, this is ridiculous. What if she hates Arsenal? What if she hates Arsenal and all that? And I'm like, guys, you have to remember, this is the player that has a baked bean tattoo. Georgia Stanway's tattoos are not serious at all.
I think it's ridiculous that people are up in arms about that. Like, and they're worried about her. That's absolutely insane. And also anybody that knows that like has followed women's football knows that Georgia Stanway just like has a tattoo gun and puts random shit on her own body on her own. If she doesn't care, if she doesn't care, you shouldn't care. Everybody calm down. I think that's hilarious. I love that that's how they announced it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it was like, well done, the Arsenal media team. I think it's great that she's back in the WSL. I think I think she's a great addition to their midfield, which they have lost a few key players. I mean, I know because of, unfortunately, her mother's health, Cooney Cross is still in doubt whether she's going to stay at Arsenal, if she's going to move back to Australia permanently. So to have such a veteran presence and such a baller that is Georgia Stanway, and Arsenal need that kick up the butt because they had, and I believe, I think it was either Farrell Williams or Ellen White, I can't remember which pundit it was, that said that Arsenal had the most it was Fran Kirby. Fran Kirby said that Arsenal had the most disappointing season out of all of the WSL, and I think that's quite fair.
I think that's fair. You can absolutely make that argument.
Yeah. And they need that kick up the butt, and Georgia is that player.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of Fran Kirby, shall we talk about Brighton for a second?
Yes, editor Mike was very excited and we said we could do a whole hour on this, and I'm like, you maybe.
Tell us the news, Allie.
Lia Volti has moved back from Italy. She is back at the WSL and she has gone to Brighton. Brighton fans are ecstatic. What a signing for Brighton.
It's a great signing. Brighton just they're on the up and up year after year now. They're the real deal.
What I feel for Brighton is, and I think obviously the setup's great, the coach that we were a bit skeptical at first because he didn't have a massive amount of experience, he did feel a bit of a nepo baby, has really proven that he is actually a fantastic coach, and is does know how to build a rapport. They're getting great players, but I feel like what a lot of, and this is going to be some UK geography for people that may not know, is Brighton is a great place in the fact there's a lot of players that want to stay within touching distance of London but may not want to go to a London rival if they've come from a London club. And Brighton, you can be in Brighton in less than an hour from London if you go on the fast train. So it's that balance, and it's only going to benefit Brighton. They're putting in a ton of money into their women's team. They've announced that they're building a brand new purpose-built stadium. That's going to be happening in a couple of years. They reckon by 2030 at the latest. So it's a good time to be in the Brighton project.
It really is. Dare I say something? Brighton finished 7th in the WSL this year. I'm going to go with 5. I think they're finishing 5 this coming season. All right. And finally, Allie, we are going to end on kind of a sadder note, but it's an important note because the story that has, I think it's been like 3 years now. There have been updates, and you are going to bring us all of those updates.
I am. So, very bit of background for anybody who doesn't remember is Maddie Cusack was a player at Sheffield United who sadly took her own life. Like you said, it was about 3-4 years ago now. And they're finally, due to there was lots of, legal challenges from Sheffield to stop this happening, they're finally having an inquest into her death. And some key points have been brought up. The biggest one, I would say, is that Jonathan Morgan, who was the manager at the time at Sheffield United, that her family have pointed that it was his behaviour towards Maddie that unfortunately caused her to take her own life, is representing himself, which is, it's both hysterical, but it's also really upsetting because that means he gets to question her girlfriend, her mother, her family.
Oh, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, it does mean that he's in charge of that because he's representing himself.
That's too bad. I heard that and I was like, great, he's going to lose.
It feels like another power trip. from Mr. Morgan, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Which hopefully should be taken into account by the jury.
Yeah. So we've heard things that, he gave his evidence today as of recording, which is Monday the 6th. He said that it was just banter. I hate that word so much. That he was like, he laughed and joked with Maddie, and that she said that she was looking forward to working with him and that doesn't know what's going on. Her girlfriend has said that, it was his bullying that really made her depressed, that he cut her out of Sheffield United, that he'd worked with her before and she didn't want to work with him again. So it's just a lot of stuff coming to the surface regarding that. But all in all, it's just a really sad situation. And unfortunately, Mr. Morgan's not coming out of this very well. Sheffield United are definitely not coming out of this well. And it's just a very sad thing. If you keep following the Telegraph's coverage, Catherine Bate, who's a phenomenal women's football journalist over here, is currently sitting in on the inquest and is giving us daily updates. So I would check out her Twitter feed because she is telling us what is happening.
Great summary, great update, great shout for those who want to follow. And that does it for us this week, Allie. We'll be back next week. A reminder for what Allie mentioned at the top of this episode, we'll be back next week, but we will be audio only. So for those of you who watch us, don't worry. We'll be audio only for only 2 weeks, and then we will be back to video. But catch us in your ears next Wednesday. And for the Women's Soccer Show, I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.